Welcome to Women in the Mafia with Lisa and Staxx. I'm Bill Staxx,
I'm Lisa Lumine.
and we're here to talk about the blonde murdered Jinx, which is Janace
Drake,
Drake.
aka Miss Legs, New Jersey. That's right. She was a hot number too. My goodness. What a bad
Yeah.
luck broad though, huh?
Oh man, she has an interesting story, and we're gonna get into it.
Right. It's one of the most fascinating. And I think probably what makes it so cool is that you can literally Google her name and there's the picture of her just taken out. It's pretty shocking. I love it.
Oh
You
yeah, with
know?
her sitting in the car, the
Yeah.
famous picture.
It
That
ain't pretty, my friends. She was beautiful, but her end was not, you know?
no,
Live
and
fast, leave a good looking corpse.
she was associated with a lot of these gangsters throughout
Yeah.
the
So,
year.
let's get into it. So basically, this girl was a former beauty queen. She was Miss New Jersey. She was married to Alan Drake, who apparently owned a few nightclubs. And, he was a comedian in the time. And I'm wondering, is that where she made her connections? I'm wondering. Probably so. The nightclub circuit back then was certainly a little one. So I don't think it's unreasonable to think she met some of these mafia connected guys. But yeah, she was involved with two other deaths of crime involved people and brought in with the police station. And she was known as a jinx throughout the mafia. And there was even a saying that if you want somebody rubbed out, let him go on a date with Janice the night before. No joke. So that's how bad luck this poor broad was.
And a lot of these guys had associations with her, like
Yeah. So apparently in 1952, she was dating Nat Nelson. Here we go. Crime captain right here. And apparently the first night she's out on a date with him and they go clubbing and, multiple witnesses see him. The next morning, I guess she finds him dead in his apartment. She goes over to go visit him and he's shot between the eyes. She's drugged into the police station. But apparently she didn't rat because Mafia kept, I guess, dating with her. Then she's out with Albert Anastasia the night before he gets offed. And, she's drugging again for questioning and, again, let go. And so on this particular night, I think it was what, 1959 or something? No, 1957.
57. Yeah, this
Yeah.
was in between the time that so little Augie had associations with the Genovese family, which was
Right.
Giano family.
Right. And apparently he was, supporting Costello. So apparently he was loyal to Costello and did not want to, go down under Vito Genovese. And from what I understand, a lot of the soldiers felt more of a connection with Vito Genovese because he was more blue collar and more everyman. So Costello, his support was waning at the time. So little Augie had been sent down to Florida apparently to, establish this gambling empire, which he did so successfully. He comes back to New York after Costello survives an assassination attempt. In support of Costello, Vito Genovese is like, we can't have this. We got to take this guy out. So that's what happens. And apparently on that night, he's out with Janace Drake. At first, they go out to the Copacabana. And then they go to Marino's restaurant together. And the story told by police is that they met out there, but I don't believe that for 1 second. I think she was with them from the get-go. I read a couple interviews from her family, and they said she left in a mysterious car that night. So I don't know if they just don't want to say or what, but they go out to Marino's, and apparently he gets a phone call, and people think that it was Costello warning him of the assassination attempt getting ready to happen. And so he leaves with Janice Drake, and it does not end well. They think who did it was Anthony Spartel. Was that his name? They think he's the one who carried it out because he actually said to his girlfriend, Arlene Weiss, who wrote the book Mob Girls, he told her that Janice was collateral damage. So
And there's rumors that the person who killed them might have been hiding in the back seat of the car when they
from
got.
what? Okay, so this is what I thought was really interesting. So apparently, okay, and I was just telling you about this, there were 3 14-year-old kids out playing that night. And if you look in the comments at some of the YouTube videos, you'll actually see this woman who was a neighbor of one of the kids. So 3 14-year-old kids witnessed this, assassination of Janice Drake and little Augie, right? 2 guys in the back seat of a car, and the 2 guys get out. They actually got the make and model of the car and the license plate, and then spent their whole lives in hiding because they were terrified that the mob was going to come and get them. The police did not, they said a witness. They didn't say who the witnesses was. So there was 3 14-year-old kids that actually witnessed the crime and were forever impacted by it.
And
So go
never
figure.
panned out from that.
Right, nothing did.
So
And apparently it was 2 people, so they were hiding in the back and apparently drove them to a, undisclosed location. What a scary drive. It was about 45 minutes away from where they originally were. So they, gun to the head, drive, don't say a word, and then took them out.
it's crazy. So
It's
little
totally
Augie,
crazy.
he had an act of defiance. He was called
Yes,
in to a meeting, and this was in between the shooting of Costello in May 2nd of 1957, and the murder of
right.
Albert Anastasia. So right in
That's right.
between that time is when he decided not to come in for this meeting.
And from what I understand, that was quite the act of defiance. And like, it was totally unheard of. And when little Augie did it, he knew that his time was limited. Like, he knew, he was like checking over his shoulder left and right. Why he felt it was okay to go out to eat that night, because I don't know about you, I would have been hiding. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I mean,
Also,
because a lot of the other people who are in the syndicate with you, they know that you're out and you defying
right.
this guy's orders. So
And then, like, reading more about it and like why some of the soldiers, they identified apparently more with Vito Genovese because he was like every man. So apparently, from what I understand, Costello is, running these multi-million dollar empires and going to, like, Paris and Costa Rica and Miami. And so the soldiers are still out on the streets doing their footwork, and they are looking at it going, we're not reaping the benefits that we think we should. And Vito Genovese comes in and is like, hey, you come work for me. You're going to get the house. You're going to get the Cadillac. You're going to get the girls and then some. But you have to make a stand with me now. And apparently little Augie was like, nope, I stay with Costello. And it does not end well.
and I think when Costello got shot by the Chin, the assassination attempt, which he failed,
Yes.
um,
And wasn't it something stupid too? Because like he came up to him and was like, "Hey, this is for you" or something, and so like he misses him or something like that. It was
yeah,
like
yeah,
something
he
bizarre.
yelled his name.
Yeah,
He yelled. If
yeah.
he didn't yell his
If he
name,
hadn't yelled it, yeah, it's like the funniest story. Like, can you imagine? Like, what an idiot. If I'm going to take somebody out, I'm not going to be up there like, hey, man, like me, like, I'm going to be quiet sneaking up,
yeah,
So,
the
yeah.
Chin Gigante, he yelled his name. Hey, Vito! He wanted him to know that he was killing him.
Yeah, and so he, escapes this assassination attempt. But, Vito Genovese right then and there is like, look, you got to stand for me or, go. So if you're not going to fall under me, then, go. And the soldiers at this time are all, they want to go with Genovese because they identify more with him from what I understand. And Costello, although he had a good reputation as like, building these empires, Genovese was like every man, and he had come from where a lot of the soldiers came from. So they
Yeah.
actually identified so much more with him, So I think when the decision was made to take little Augie out, it wasn't even debated. It was like, let's do this, let's get him out.
So I hear that back in the day, little Augie allegedly stole his name from another gangster
Really?
who died
Wow.
earlier in the century, and he took that name, the little
I
Augie
did not
name.
know that. That's something. Well, apparently he wasn't little though, was he? Like wasn't he tall or something? Like he was opposite of little, right?
There's all these different
I could
different
not find a
things
definitive thing about was he tall? Was he really little? Like where did the little come from? You know what I mean? Because he looks like he's a taller guy.
because these
So,
first pictures of little Augie, they have the names and the
right.
pictures mixed up. I think
Yeah.
I think they mixed them up with these two people, little Augie mixed up with this other guy who got murdered. He was a
Right.
Jewish gangster,
Go
and
figure.
his name was Little Augie, but his name was Jacob, I believe. This guy's name
Gotcha.
was
Okay.
Anthony, right?
Yeah, Anthony. Yeah,
Anthony,
yeah.
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 So
And so, and basically, little Augie, of course, like I was telling you, made his bones because he was a really good earner in the beginning. Apparently, he went through being a soldier and, made his bones early. So he gets sent down to Miami to go build this empire for this illegal gambling. And along the way, apparently, is a very savvy businessman because apparently he was able to really make these really cool hotels with spas in it. And apparently, he was one of the first people to come up with the idea of putting spas in hotels. So he builds this multi-million-dollar empire in Florida, just kills it. So apparently a very savvy businessman as well. And of course, comes back to New York, So yeah, apparently he was a very good earner, very clever and a smart businessman as well. So many of them are, and that's what's interesting too. You know what I mean? Like, and what gets me is some of these guys came to America not even speaking English.
Yeah.
And end up building these empires that are just fascinating to me. You know what I mean? And they're running the streets of like, Jersey and Brooklyn. Unfortunately for poor Janice in this situation, I think just like, your boy Tony said, she happened to be collateral damage. I think this girl, for whatever reason, the allure of the mafia guys was just too much for her to turn away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think she wanted to be around the glitz and glamour, and her husband, I think he probably wanted her to be associated with these people because it would help his
Well,
career too,
it
you
probably
know?
would. Yeah, 100%. A lot of those women, they say, especially like back in the old days, were supported by a lot of underworld people. And do I believe that? 100%? Because, Hollywood was run by criminals back in the day. So, yeah, what I find interesting is like, when did she end up making these connections with these underworld guys and just decide, this is going to be my life? What's forgotten about this is that she was a mother. She had a 13-year-old kid at home, apparently. So apparently, she had seen the face of the people who were going to kill them, so she could not have been let go. And in the mob, usually they say children and wives, women,
Women are out
whatever.
of it, yeah. They
Right. But in
they
this
exclude
case,
them,
no.
but
Yeah. In this case, she was, collateral damage. And apparently, just the fact that she had been, privy to two other high profile assassinations, had been with the people before. What gets me is like the getting called into the police station. I would have thought that that would have been the first red flag for her having to be, rubbed out. You know what I mean? Because anybody, it would be, you would think that she was ratting. But apparently, I guess she kept her lips sealed, but it didn't save her in the end, unfortunately.
so here's a picture from that scene when
Oh
Janice
man,
Drake
she made a
got
beautiful
murdered.
corpse. They said that she was shot first in her neck. And from what the police officer was saying, because I was reading some of the police report, they were saying that it was basically that she, had, I guess, turned to run. And so that's why I got her in her neck, did not kill her right away, hence the second shot to the back of the head. So she had a moment, which is probably why her eyes are wide open like that. And she looks so shocked. Augie, of course, is over on the side on her lap, But
Yeah.
what a horrific. Can you imagine like her kid opening that? Because like back in the day, I don't think people realized they would put these pictures in the paper. Like
In the
this
newspaper.
picture of her would have been probably on the front page
Yeah,
with some
front
kind of
page.
horrible headline, Mafia Mall gets what she deserves or some horrible,
Right here.
something like that. Yeah. So like
Yeah.
her 13-year-old kid, his schoolmates were probably like seeing this in the paper. Also her family was very, upset with this tragedy. Like they never fully healed from what I understand. The mother and father, it was her stepmother and her father who basically were always trying to fight for, to redeem her reputation, if you will.
Did you hear anything about her husband after she got
Yeah,
killed? Was
so
there any?
and he does this really bizarre interview. So he does this interview where he basically says something along the lines of like, today I've lost the most wonderful, amazing wife a man can have. And like my first thing with that is like, how can you say that? Because she was out with other guys. You know what I mean? So
While
maybe
she got
he's just trying
killed,
to, yes. And so like maybe he was trying to save face for their 13-year-old kid and trying to, hey, she was a great mother, whatever. So, but after that, he kind of falls off the radar. I know that he was, questioned a few more times and, nothing ever comes of it. There's no suspects. The 14-year-old kids that actually witnessed the shooting, they give a description of the car. They give a description of two well-dressed guys jumping out of the car and getting into another getaway vehicle, which explains how they were able to get out of there as quickly as they were. And that's that. It's over. It's done. And she's laid to rest. Little Augie's laid to rest. And that's that.
so
So I
Augie,
honestly,
do you know how old Augie was when he was killed? Because he
so
looks
he
like an
was,
old man.
yeah. So I think she was in her early 30s. I think she was 33, 32 or 33. And he is in his early 60s. I think he's 63 or 64 at the time. Because in a lot of the newspaper things, they make a big deal about, the age difference with them both. They're like, he was, whatever years her senior. So, the implication being made again that, it's kind of her fault what happened because she was hanging with the underworld guys. Also, like, I wonder why this chick, just being a girl myself, why wouldn't she like stop hanging out with mafia guys? Like, I would. I don't know. After the first guy got off, I would be like, you know what? That's it for me. I'm good. But then I wondered to myself, is
And
it something to where she could not get out and had to make
or
herself
she knew too
available?
much, or
Because
she
she
knew
knew too
too much.
much. And like, maybe it was one of those scenarios where it's like, let me just keep these guys happy so that nothing happens. And unfortunately, it came back and bit her in the ass regardless, you know? So,
Well, you know,
interesting book.
Albert Anastasia was the type of guy to sit
Yeah.
there and watch the TV, and
Yep.
he seen a guy telling on another guy on TV, and he had him killed
Yeah.
for
Oh,
it.
he was
So,
so
like,
crazy. So
that's the
crazy.
type
Yeah.
of stuff that they would do back then.
She was
Fine.
definitely buried, and I was looking on Find a Grave too. I couldn't find her gravestone, so I wonder if that's it. You know, I also wonder whatever happened to her 13-year-old son. What a stigma to grow up with, you know. And unfortunately, that's the thing is like, you know, a lot of these people that are families of these victims end up being collateral damage along with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
Like,
they
how
end
did
up
the
dealing with it for years.
for
The
years?
repercussions, the aftermath of getting murdered in the street,
Yeah,
and
100%. Yeah,
yeah, if
not
the
worth it to
family's
be a
out
mob
there
though.
and if the family's out there and they want to tell the story, you're welcome to come on the show. And so, do you want to tell the people what we have planned for the future of this show?
Yeah. So like, you know, you and I were talking and we love going down that rabbit hole of like, you know, the mafia women, the women connected with the mafia, you know, and you know, there's always two sides to every story. And for me, I always feel like we give a voice to those who have no voice any longer. And, you know, these women are ultimately forgotten. You know, like think about a movie like Goodfellas, where we have somebody like Karen Hill who was just, you know, basically a co-star to the movie of Frank Hill's life. But to me, she
There's a
was
lot of
so much
secrets.
more. There's so
There's a
much
lot
more
of
to it.
secrets that we're gonna be
Right.
dropping with this show that people
Right.
don't know about
And
Karen.
there, you know,
About
there are
if
so many about women that were involved. And to me, they're almost like the heartbeats of the mafia because these women, without these women, these men, you know, would not have been as operational, let's say, because they needed these women in ways to help them, you know, be men, I suppose. So, you know, you can't have these stories without having these guys ultimately hooking up with these girls and, you know, these scenarios that don't turn out well, like in the case of Janice Drake or let's say Karen Hill or your girl from a casino. I was just looking up the true story about her, the real Ginger. You know what I mean? That's a
yeah,
fascinating story to me. And again, look at how forgotten she is. We all know about Lefty, but we know nothing really about her except for the way she's portrayed in the film. You know, and often I've seen that and I thought, you know, I don't know if that's quite so fair because she's not around to tell her side of the story. And I guarantee Lefty was not the easiest guy to be married to. I'm just saying, I'm not saying that the affair with your boy
probably
was
not.
right, but I'm just going to tell you right now, any of these guys being married to them, dating them, that couldn't have been easy at all. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm all about these mafia girls that basically, you know, not only survived it or, you know, basically thrived in it, but some of them ultimately really were, you know, pivotal in helping some of these guys make decisions, stay
Like Nancy
calm.
Spillatro,
Yes.
Spilatro's wife. Shout out to Spilatro's son, man. I appreciate
Right,
all the
right.
information that you give me, and we got a lot of stuff to bring you. And you could give the female aspect of the stories that we're doing, and I could give the male aspect, and
Yeah, I love it,
that's
man. I love it. See, like today, look what we did for Janice Drake. You know, this girl is basically just a bump on the radar of little Augie's story. And to me, she's almost forgotten in translation. So I feel like today, it's like here we are talking about her and, you know, bringing her up. And it's like we give her a voice. You know what I mean? We're
yeah,
remembering her and who she was. She wasn't just this, you know, underworld doll that was, you know, caught up in something. She actually was a mother. She actually was, you know, with other guys who got killed. So she was a somebody within the mob. You know what I mean? And I find that a fascinating story because look, they did not just, you know, socialize with anybody, these guys. So obviously they chose her for a reason, probably due to her beauty, you know, and whatever else. But again, collateral damage, some may say. I think there's a lot more to these stories. You know what I mean? And I want to know all about it. I really do. There's
definitely,
this really cool book out there called Mob Girls by Arlene Weiss, who was dating that guy. What was his name? They called him Adonis, I believe.
yeah.
I can't get his.
Joe
Yes. Okay.
Joe
So
Adantis. Joe
Yes.
Adamo.
So apparently she was like, this big mafia chick. And she has this like famous line. I'm not going to say it, but I told you the other day. I love it. I love it. Watching her YouTube interviews, she's, got a cigarette dangling out of her mouth and cleavage down to here. And she's just like, nobody has it like a wise guy. And I'm like, I love this broad. But she wrote this book and it's called, The Woman Who Basically, blew up the mafia. And she basically says at the end of this interview, look, I know I'm spilling secrets. I know I'm spilling tea. Come for me if you want. You know where I'm at. She's got bigger balls than most of those guys, and I'm here for it. I love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're gonna bring them the best possible stories we can get. And
Yeah,
I
man.
found a picture of the girl you were talking about. Here's one of the pictures. This might be
She's my
Virginia
favorite.
Hill.
I
Is
think
this
that's Virginia
Virginia
Hill.
Hill?
Yeah, but that was
Yeah, probably.
actually her mentor and idol. She loved that girl. She would actually dress like her. And Virginia Hill, that's another one. Okay, so look at how she's portrayed. You know what I mean? Like, okay, yeah, ultimately she most likely was responsible for having Lucky killed. But, again, here's another one. She was a savvy businesswoman, and all you have to do is look at that footage of her in court. Oh my God, she was a badass. I mean, she gives it
Cigarette.
to she gives it to that judge. I mean, I think there was like some line where he's like, "Would you say you're missing it or something like?" And she's like, "I was never missing it." I mean, she was so savvy. She was such a badass. I would not want to mess with her. Virginia Hill was like so cool. And look, it takes a special kind of somebody to survive men like that, especially in those times where we women didn't have any voice, no rights, no nothing. We were expected to be, pregnant, cooking in the kitchen, and that's that. So to me, the fact that she survived as long as she did, that's kind of fascinating. Unfortunately for Janice, it did not go so well.
No, she died at a young age too.
Yeah,
What
like
was she
early
passed away?
30s, man, early 30s. But I have to say this, and it's going to sound terrible, but it's one of those things of like, she should have known after the second guy got killed that she was with. I think after that point, I would have, been busy that night. I'm just
And
saying.
Albert Anastasia was a
Of
high
all
profile
people, of
guy. Like
all people, I know. Now they have some fabulous. Wasn't she gorgeous though? I mean,
she
my
was really
God, that
pretty.
girl,
Yeah,
her the bathing suit picture, the legs. I mean, I could see why she got Miss Legs, New Jersey. You know what I mean? Beautiful girl, and
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, yeah, she was just hot as can be back in the day. I wonder like about the first wise guy, whoever like came up to her and was like, "Hey, girl," and she was like, "Okay, this seems like a good thing." Like I always wonder how that, yeah, he might have killed somebody, but I'm gonna go out on a date with him. You know what I mean? Like I always wonder about stuff like that.
I
So
think
yeah, she
they're
was.
probably just fascinated, just like how women are
Yeah,
with street guys now, or guys they
right.
think it's safe.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
They had a girl on TikTok recently, and she's sitting there talking about how she only dates guys in prison. And I was like, oh honey, But yeah, I guess it takes all kinds. You know what I mean? But
Hey,
again,
right
a
when they
lot
get
of
out,
them.
things change.
Oh my God, haven't they seen Love After Lockup? Yeah, hello, it all changes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought it was hilarious. But yeah, these women, they really do get lost in translation. And again, great example for me, Casino. I mean, that girl, she just is painted in this picture of just, this drug-addled, horrible mother, that was, having this affair and just, making his life miserable. And, I've always wondered what was the true story of Ginger? Who was Ginger really? You know what I mean? Also, did you ever hear about how Ginger died? That will be our next story because her death is fascinating. It is not like how it
No,
was
I
portrayed
haven't.
in the movie. Oh my God. Oh, that's going to be our next one. Look, I'm getting like visibly excited talking about it. But like she was found dead at the Beverly Hills Hotel in the lobby after a mysterious meeting with one of Lefty's guys. So the rumor is she got a hot shot, but it could have been from Lefty. And I think at that
Wow.
point, he was so pissed at her. I think it's totally feasible, but it's weird because she was in a lobby of a freaking hotel. Yeah, it's so creepy. That's going to be our next one. I'm telling you. That's a great story right
Hey,
there.
I'm
She
down
was
to
a
do
fascinating character.
whatever
I
stories you
know.
want. There's a lot.
It,
There's a lot of them to go over. A lot.
yeah, and they're all fascinating. It seems to me if you were like a showgirl, an actress, a model, anything like that, the mafia was very into pretty girls. So, unfortunately, if they found you and you went out on a date with them and then you were in that circle, it was playing with fire. So it was just a matter of time, unless you were somebody who was savvy like Arlene Weiss, who then wrote a book and straight up was like, come
You
for
know
me if you
who
want
else I
to.
want to do a story on? Scarpa and Larry
Yeah.
Mazza. The girl
Yes.
with them. Oh man, that's
It's a
pretty
great
deep one.
one.
Yeah,
You got so many cool things to go over. Yeah, 100%.
definitely.
Yeah. fascinating characters, right? I mean, they're not
Definitely.
made like that anymore. They're not made like that anymore. Even the
No.
mafia guys themselves, I find them so, like, their characters are so fascinating to me because ultimately some of them were really, refined gentlemen who just happen to have underworld ties and do murder on the side. You know what I mean? Like, you
Yeah.
have to respect that in some kind of odd way. You know what I mean? Like,
And they
some
all
of it
had
is so,
girlfriends. They all had wives
yeah.
and girlfriends on the side.
What is it? A
And
guma? A
Gumana,
guma?
a Gumana.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
they it was acceptable back then. They
Totally
would bring their
accepted. Yeah.
girlfriends to dinner and everything was fine. They would serve them and they'd have their wife there the next day. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, weird, totally weird. And sometimes the wives were fully aware of it and just like, hey, it is what it is. You know what I mean? I'm sitting here holding down the household. Go do what you got to do. You
Yep.
know, happy to be out of it. Because look at poor old Janice Drake and what happened to her, right?
Yeah. Hey, she
Some of the
wound it up.
newspaper clippings are amazing about that murder too because they're literally like you can tell men have written them and they're like, even though she was a mother and married, she was out that night. And it's like, well, maybe she was just catching dinner. I get it. I get it. It was the 50s, so eyebrow raised. But, the consensus is that she kind of got what she deserved for playing with, mafia guys. And a lot of those newspaper articles kind of reflect that too. And I'm
Well,
just
the
like,
name
man,
of
can a
this one
sister
is
catch a
going to
break?
be The Blonde Murder Jinx.
I
That's what I'll
like it,
name this one.
man. I
The
like it. And they're going to be
Blonde
like, is that
Murder.
Lisa? And I'll be like, no, it's not me. It's not me. I swear.
Well, I
I kind
appreciate
of,
you. And
man, this has been fun. I can't wait for the next one. Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna be banging them out, and people are gonna be quite surprised at the
Killing
little
it.
the little show that we're gonna accumulate. I think people are gonna like this show.
Well, I know a lot of useless information about mob guys. Don't ask me why. My mom had a lot of mafia books growing up, and I would sit and read them because I was just fascinated. Because they had the horrible pictures of like the guys in the black of the car with like their brains blown out, or like in the
Yeah,
diner,
sitting in the car
dead.
like, oh,
Little Nicky so and so, got killed in Little Italy, and I remember like being like 10, reading these, going, "Holy shit!" So I was always fascinated by these. And, I'm in New Orleans, so we have huge mafia connections here. So I would love to go down the rabbit hole with that one day.
hey,
So
yeah,
yeah,
we're gonna do
so
that
much stuff we can cover. Yeah. So yeah, come catch
definitely.
me and Bill Staxx over here, killing it.
You already know.
Yeah.
Lisa and Staxx, Women in the Mafia.
You know
Make
what
sure
it
you hit the
is.
like, subscribe, and notification bell so you can get our videos every time they drop. Do you want to give anyone a shout out before we go?
Just me for being fabulous.
And I appreciate you for taking the
No,
time.
I like to say my friend William Crooks with Partners at Crime podcast. He's awesome.
Yes,
So yeah, he's a big fan of yours, and so yeah, I'd like to say hi to
he's a
him because
great
he's one
friend.
of my
Great
faves.
friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hey, William,
Oh
what's up,
yeah.
man?
Hey, till next time. I
All
appreciate
right,
you.
man. It's been fun. Been real.
Definitely. Peace, everybody.